Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Psychedelic Scene Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Sitnick. Think of me as your psychedelic big sister, helping to make sense of all this psychedelic stuff. So today's conversation, it's an important one. I'm joined by Magdalena Grace, and she's the founder of the Lotus Throne Coaching and Healing Sanctuary. And in this episode, we talk candidly about the psychedelic scene right now, the red flags you might run into, what to look for in practitioners. We give you some pretty clear guidelines to help you stay safe. So let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Psychedelic Scene Podcast. Today, I am talking to Magdalena Grace. Magdalena, welcome. This is going to be a very important conversation. Let me give you Magdalena's background. She is the founder of the Lotus Throne Coaching and Healing Sanctuary. Magdalena helps mompreneurs. Do you know how many times I had to practice that word? Mompreneurs and conscious entrepreneurs. She helps them alchemize grief, trauma, and addiction into health, wealth, and relationship transformation. She has over 25 years coaching over 20,000 people across fitness, sales, and business. She integrates shadow work, ancestral healing, and the 12-week year framework. I've had to double check I didn't say that wrong. We totally need to check that out so that the feminine flow meets aligned action, and her lived recovery and athletic background fuel a compassionate, results-driven container for deep change. Magdalena, welcome to the Psychedelic Scene Podcast.
Yeah, such an honor.
Oh my gosh. So we kind of already talked about what we're going to be focusing on because you have such a broad spectrum. With that said, introduce yourself to our audience. Give us your origin story. How do you find yourself talking on the Psychedelic Scene Podcast?
Yeah, it's great. If you would have told me, gosh, I'm even thinking maybe 5 years ago that I'd be a medicine woman and an alchemist, I'd be like, what are you smoking, literally and figuratively? Because I started out in real estate back in my early 20s. I've always been a saleswoman. I love sales. Love sales. And I was good at it. I made, 6 figures working part-time as a realtor. And at the same time, I stumbled into fitness, and I really loved the fitness side of it. I loved the body-mind connection of challenging the body. Fit mind was always my mantra, and I went into fitness full time. However, as my ancestors would have it, they were calling me back because I had been running from so many things in my life, that ran in my family, like alcoholism, mental illness, autoimmune disease, divorce. Those are the 4 big ones in my family of origin that I just was always like, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to me. And I signed up for all of them. And in 2020 is when I hit my proverbial rock bottom. I wanted to die. I was a closet alcoholic, drinking to escape. I didn't want to be married anymore, but I also was terrified of that D word called divorce. And I just felt like a worthless mother. And I was making 20 to 40 grand a month in the midst of a pandemic. I had converted my 100% offline business to 100% online, and it was seamless and easy because, again, I love sales and I love people and I love all of that, but I was wearing a lot of masks. And so I literally had lost 13 friends to suicide, my brother to alcoholism, and I started to see the signs that if I didn't get help, I probably was going to go out one of 2 ways. And so I wove my white flag in the surrender journey. I read the book, The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And, when you surrender, the universe sends you help. And I got a guy that was a psychic channel, and he said, hey, you're supposed to be a healer and a teacher. You just got to heal. Go play with psychedelics. So I was like, okay, I've never done drugs in my life. I didn't even smoke cigarettes. I had all these other addictions, but not that. And so I was in Southern California. So guess what? No shortage of medicine. So I called up my mushroom shaman, had my first mushroom journey, and then the rest, they say, is history. I worked with the medicine, ayahuasca primarily, hape, sananga, kambo, the frog medicine. However, and I know we're going to get here. After about 6 months of working with this one group, I realized I was starting to change, but it just seemed like I was just doing a lot of medicine and I wasn't fully integrating. And
Wow.
so I found shadow work. I found Kundalini yoga. I found these other tools in my life and recognizing that the medicine was great. It opened the door,
Mhm.
but I had to integrate. And since nobody really offered integration, I had to kind of figure it out myself. And so, because of my background in health and fitness, I knew daily habits were important. So, after a journey where I communed with my ancestors and they told me, guess what? You were the cycle breaker. You came here. This was an ayahuasca ceremony. You came here to end autoimmune disease, alcoholism, mental illness. And oh, by the way, they didn't talk about divorce at that journey. That came much later, but it was like, okay, I'm not a victim anymore. I came here. I am the ancestor. My family needed to break these things. I'm going to do this for myself, my children, and then it became my passion and I started specializing in grief, addiction, and now divorce recovery. It wasn't until 2024 that I had healed a lot
Yeah.
of the shame and the ancestral stuff and the belief that till death do you part. I mean, this is all a construct. It was made up by the church and the institutions that are now thankfully just kind of sort of starting to crumble and break down on this planetary awakening and heading into the golden age, the age of Aquarius. So I knew I was an early adopter and a way shower. And I also, this will be my last thing, started serving medicine way sooner than admittedly I think I probably needed to, because there was a lot of people getting injured in the space, a lot
Yeah.
of shady shaman, a lot of posers, a lot of people who are like, hey, oh, medicine changed my life. So I'm just going to start serving without integration and without training and without even asking the medicine and having a relationship with the medicine after many, many,
Yeah.
many, many sits or training, right? And so I started serving. And so that's kind of the shortest I could probably do that story. Because as you can imagine, there was a long dark night of the soul with all of that.
Yeah, my ancestors gave me I remember kind of saying, "Why? Why am I this hurts. This is painful. All the work. I don't even have to define. You know exactly what I'm talking about. All the really tough, deep, awful, vile kind of work." And they so kindly told me I was the tip of the spear. Everything had worked up to this. This is what I was supposed to be doing. And I was like, "Oh, okay, but it could have been a little bit easier, right?"
Right. 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 Or not. I mean, we don't
Or
really know, do we?
not.
I mean, it'll be easier for our children. It'll be easier for our communities. It will be easier. I have faith.
Yes, that's why we're here. All right, so there is a wide breadth of information and experience you have. What I think more and more of our audience that absolutely is familiar with this particular kind of psychedelic world, but they're all over the place. We have a very broadly global audience. And I think what we're all seeing is a proliferation of what you just said, medicine experiences that maybe are not as oh, I want to be optimistic, but I want to be realistic. Many of them are not do not have a foundation of safety. And I found some of your experience. I came to psychedelics through therapy. So when we were kind of chit-chatting a little bit, your
Mhm.
experience and your introduction into the space, and I'm wondering, what you've seen, what your impression is, and for our listeners who are like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing some different stuff." What have you seen? What are the precautions? I know that's a big, giant question, but you've got a broad stretch of experience here.
Yeah, and I was so naive. I mean, I was born and raised on a farm in Iowa, and I was that was one of my wounds. I was very overly sheepalized, a follower, very trusting, and so I didn't ask any questions. I just thought, oh, shaman equals guru, shaman equals thousands of
Knowledge.
years of lineage, right? And the
Right.
first shaman I worked with, turns out he also was a, card carrying member of Narcotics Anonymous, had a felony on his record. I mean, all of these things. And I actually had the opportunity. People knew this and they didn't tell me. They were just kind of like they heard I was working with them and they slowly moved away from me. And so
Oh.
I'm sharing that part because I am not here to be like a gossip. I'm not going to be a whistleblower, at least not on this
Right.
actual show.
Right.
But I'm also not going to do what those people did. And if someone asks, get a referral
Yes.
and ask for testimonials, just like you would a realtor, mechanic, I would hope, right? And take this seriously. This is more serious, I have to say, than your car, or maybe not your house that you're going to buy and live in, but this is your body and your mind. Do they have intake forms? Do they interview you hours and hours before you get together, or do they just like basically throw you in a room with a bunch of people, sing at you for a few hours and only charge you $300 and say, "Oh, that was beautiful. We all got high together," essentially, and then I send you home blown wide open.
Yes.
You can read between the lines that maybe I've had a few experiences like that. And I don't want to
I
say that
I
I'm
think we
judging.
all have. I think anybody who's done the retreat kind of circuit has had that experience. Yeah.
And if they don't give you preparation hours before and hours after, now granted, I know not all ceremonialists or all, servers are also not trained in integration, but I'm also here to tell you, I think you're kind of also missing the mark. If someone's serving you medicine and then you have different people doing the prep work and the integration, that's just my personal opinion. It's a little weird. And I feel like it's great if you can get it all in one place. And if you can't, again, no judgment. I think you just got to make sure you prepare, you go have the experience, you have serious, clear intentions, and there's a lot of protection around that. We can talk about getting into how to protect the space, because when you're open like that,
Mhm.
you can have leakages and things that follow you home. I had the portals of hell opened up in one of my journeys, and I was arguing with my partner for days. Now, granted, since we
Oh,
did get a divorce later, that was probably what was needed, but it was just like we had stuff following us home from the different dimensions. And so it's real. Like if
yeah.
people think I'm weird, why are there haunted houses? Why are there weird things that happen and go bump in the night? When you're in the psychedelic space, you're wide open. So it's the before, the during, and the after safety. Ask those questions. How do you keep me safe? How do you reduce the harm? What happens if I have a repressed memory that comes through that I was raped or I was this or I was that? And then all of a sudden you just send me home and that's it?
Right. And I think what's interesting is that I work with a lot of people who are not in my area. So we very much do the preparation, the integration, and they're visiting someone to work with medicine so that they're not by themselves, because
Mhm.
that also comes with its things. What I really like what you said,
Mm.
I think sometimes because obviously there's a stigma, different legalities, people kind of throw common sense out the window. They're like, oh, this is a shaman. I'm just going to believe that on its face and I'm not going to interview this person. Like, treat anybody who's going to deliver you medicine or anybody who's going to be working with you in general, give them a third degree. If they aren't giving you an intake form, if they aren't asking you equal number of questions, if the second thing they say is the price,
Mhm. Yeah, and I was a sales coach, so just a spoiler alert, that's with anything, by the way. But anyway, but more so with this because you don't know. I've seen people get thrown into psych wards after medicine. I've seen people kill themselves after medicine. So it's kind of a big deal.
it's kind of a big deal. So, because of some of the situations you've been in, and I'm putting you on the spot, like what would be your top three cheat sheet questions that somebody would ask a provider to get them started? And I know I put
Yeah,
you on the spot.
yeah, that's great. Because I probably have 20, so I'm trying to narrow it down right now.
Okay, we can go
I
more
think
than three.
I think the first one, of course, I already said it, is do they have referrals and testimonials? Do they have a specialty or a niche? What have they done to
Yeah.
help transform other people's lives? Is this a full-time profession or is it a hobby and a fly-by-night side gig?
Mhm.
How do they integrate their clients? How do they prepare their clients? What happens if I have a quote unquote bad trip? How do you work with people? What tools do you have available to you in the heat of the moment? But
Yeah.
then also when I go home, how much time and energy do you give me? Or like I said, I'm not attached to this, or is there someone that I can work with? Make sure you have both lined up
Scaffolding. Mhm.
before you do it all. That those are the biggest things. And who do they have other certifications? What is their background? What did they do before this? If even if they're a shaman, I would still especially interrogate those folks,
Yep.
and be wary of the ones that fly into the US and fly out and you don't have their
Oh,
phone number,
oh,
because that's
really?
all the time. All the time. San Diego, I mean, don't get me started. But yeah, I'm starting to go off on a tangent now. That didn't really answer your question, but
No, no, no. Get their background. Don't assume because they're flying in from another country that that assumes a level of competence, I think is what I'm hearing.
well, yeah. I mean, again, it's one thing to receive medicine, but then as you and I both know, it's the preparation is, I say, 50% of the success, because
Oh, yeah.
you don't want to be running in hot. I've seen so many people do that. I did that. How do I properly prepare my mind, my body, my spirit, and like social media detox and all of these things? I tell my clients to start to bring their central nervous system
Yeah.
down so that they're ready to receive, and then take a few days off work before or a few days off work after. How do the people that are going to work with you, how do they prepare you, and how do they take care of you after, not like in person, but like virtually,
Yeah,
so that
your tribe that you've created. Yeah.
Mhm. Now you need a team of sorts, I
Yes.
think, to really get the most out of it, right? That's what you and I care about, is safety and harm reduction and
Right.
lasting transfer.
Changes, lasting changes. You've wasted your money. You've wasted your time and your money if you aren't creating that scaffolding because you came to this for a reason. Yes, there's recreational use. A lot of people come to this though because there's something that needs to be cracked open, there's something that needs to be solved, there's a behavior change that they want to make. And if they don't create the scaffolding, it's kind of like, would you have a surgery and not have somebody taking care of you and the house
Mhm.
stocked and a couple days off? Like, I really equate it to a major medical event. All the planning that way should go into when you're doing this kind of work too.
1,000%. Well, I'm going to use a real, like, I think this will be an impactful example because it was one of my realizations. What about, look at Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, now known as Ram Dass. Why did Ram Dass all of a sudden leave Timothy Leary? Timothy Leary himself was addicted to the medicine. He was also still a borderline alcoholic when he died. So there was this renaissance of psychedelics, right? Where it looked like healing and therapy, but it was still a lot of people chasing the experience
Facing the experience.
and not getting lasting results. So Ram Dass is like, peace out. I'm going to go to India and hang out with my guru over there. And then he never touched medicine ever again because he found that the answers lied within, and you didn't have to chase the experience to get that. It's a daily practice.
They were already coming. The insights were already coming up. He didn't need the help of the medicine to continue to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what happens the more experienced you get. Yeah.
Another
Well,
question is, how many times have they sat with the medicine, and how has it changed their life themselves?
how has it changed their lives? And I would even say, I'm curious about this. How many different kinds of medicine have they done? Because I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but I've run across X medicine is the only way to go and it covers everything. And I happen to know that's not true. So I
Yeah.
see that as a red flag.
Yeah. Amen to that for sure. Or if they've sat with ayahuasca 1,000 times, San Pedro 500, and mushrooms 500, and they're just like, I'm like, when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, you must be so good and so experienced. And then I'm realizing, like, I
That's a
think
lot of medicine work.
I'm like, this sounds like degrees. And then I'm like, oh wait, nope. I think they're just chasing the experience again, over
Yeah.
and over and over again, and working with too many medicines. Because how can you be an expert? It's like when I was a realtor, I didn't work with first time home buyers listings and all of these things because then I was just like a fly by night salesman. You want to work with a specialist. I do appreciate that about you and me. We're kind of specialists, right, in specific medicines. I work with 4 or 5, but we have our system and we just rinse and repeat it.
And there's also broad knowledge though. I mean, I get a lot of
True.
people who, they heard about one thing, they heard my story, MDMA, and then they'll start asking questions like, well, I needed MDMA for this reason. Let's look at what you're looking at. And I
Mhm.
think people, the way I phrase it is that we have too many practitioners who are medicine blind, that there's just one thing. And the same way that our chemistries, even just male and female with our hormones, like there are just different medicines that work at different times for different people. And I would say, I would say a red flag is if you have a practitioner who doesn't recognize that there is a spectrum of medicine versus, oh no, don't worry about all that. You just need the one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically dogma. It's like religion. Like my medicine is the only good medicine and you shouldn't go anywhere else. And I also found that in this medicine space. You and I are unique. Even you having me on this podcast, like a lot of times there was a lot of like religious dogma and patriarchy inside of the medicine space. They're like, nope, we can't share clients. Like I'm all about referring out. Like if I
Oh
don't
yeah.
work with that medicine or that niche, I'm gonna refer it out to someone else. And so that's another thing. When I mentioned, do they have a team? When you ask about questions, is
Mhm.
what kind of referral team do they have? Then they're really truly abundant thinkers and looking out for you and not being territorial and, like you said, dogmatic.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, number one, location. I mean, one of the best things I think about the both of us is we have a pretty broad network that, there's no
Mm.
reason if you can find a really qualified person that's local to you, absolutely. And everybody, if you really want to get good at something, that means you're not really good at some other things. Own up to it. Find the other
Yeah.
people who are really great at those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm super dogmatic. I'm only focused on one medicine. I don't have a lot of training. Any other red flags people should be aware of?
I mean, a couple of things that I was just thinking as you talked about, and again, I'm looking out big picture for safety. Is where do they actually serve the medicine? Is it a home? Is it a business, a brick and mortar? Or is it a van down by the river, right? And they're traveling and they're in and out of town. What are their spiritual gifts if they have some? Because this was a big thing I shared with you. I got injured through some of these spiritual gifts inside of ceremony, and it actually caused me to have like almost like psychotic breakdowns because they were not wielding good energy. I found out later, and I just blindly trusted them and literally put my body in potential harm's way. I
Yes.
remember one ceremony where it was like there was actually a few of us that had like a kind of like a psychotic breakdown, and the guy just laughed afterwards. The main facilitator said, "Oh yeah, we call that the psych ward, the psychedelic ward." And me and at least one other person were traumatized, and we called each other a week later like, yeah, that wasn't okay for you, right?" No, no, not at all. So if they also kind of laugh off your bad trip or your traumatic experience, I had that on multiple occasions because they didn't know what to do. And it was also because they didn't properly prepare and properly integrate. One group Zoom call is not integration, folks. I just want
Yeah.
to also share with you right now that is not integration. So yeah, that those are like some red flags that happen for me and something to just be wary of. Again, that goes into
Yeah.
asking for referrals and testimonials.
And it's somebody's energy too. I became kind of like if I don't like your energy when we're just talking, there is no way I'm going to like your energy when I'm in an enhanced state. And I'm going to be, I just know this from myself with my hypervigilance. I'm going to be way more focused on where you are in the space than my experience. And that's not the goal
Mhm.
of medicine for me. The goal of medicine for me is I'm going to work out some stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it was like energy. And you, I don't know. I feel like we're very similar this way. If you get any sort of inkling in your body that this is
Mhm.
not going to work, for me,
Mhm.
listen to that inkling.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and I think it goes back to because you do one-on-one, right? Is
Mhm.
your work primarily? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's I started with the group model because that was what was modeled by all of my teachers.
Mhm.
But even after some of my own, even as a facilitator, I had one group where it was we still it was only 10 people, but it was still too many. And we had three of us supporting. And it was after that that I said, okay, my max now is four if
Oh,
and I only and mostly there's a couple exceptions, but the main thing is I prefer to do one-on-one at this point. So my reason for bringing that up is from my own experience on both sides, being an attendant and a facilitator, is ask, how many people are there if it's a group, what's the ratio
yep.
of participants to facilitators or support staff or guides, again, whatever they call themselves. And then if you have like some really significant trauma or you're very empathic, like me,
Mhm.
I found out that was also part of my issue. I was taking on other people's stuff
Energy.
or people in the group were taking stuff from me. That's a thing.
Yes.
So I would really, really caution you to maybe focus on one work or just a very, very, small ratio of guide to participant would be something else to look out for.
1,000%. For anybody, this is my opinion. My opinion, and dollar bill doesn't even get you a cup of coffee. When I was dysregulated, when I first started my MDMA therapy, there is no way being in a group would have been productive or helpful for me. I needed
Yeah.
the one-to-one, I needed the conversation. I needed it to be all about me, to be honest. And when you're dealing with trauma, there's nothing wrong with that. Um,
Mhm.
and I also think sometimes it hasn't happened often, but at least once or twice I've been in a group environment and one person's stuff they haven't worked on just becomes a cloud over everybody else. And to a certain extent, that's maybe not fair to everybody else too. There is a
Mhm.
little bit of maybe a contract you make with the people that you're going into ceremony with. So there's two
Oh,
sides of it.
yeah, and that's why I've never said that I was a victim in any of these experiences that I'm explaining to you. I actually know that I had to have those
Mhm.
experiences to be a better guide
Yeah.
myself and to, quite honestly, yeah, break free from some significant, traumas that the collective was showing me that I had. And I'm also here to share to prevent other people, especially women,
Mhm.
um, from empathic women to not have the same experiences. You made me think of one more thing too, is budget. Like I just want to put this out there for
Whoa.
anyone that it's really smart if you're working with someone, maybe give them one shot. And then if you really like them and if they have an extensive program, like I think both you and I do, then if you can stay with them, don't do the hopping thing
Yes.
from facilitator to facilitator, medicine to medicine. Just take it like, and really no need to sit more than 3 or 4 times a year max. If the people like me, again, I was thinking, oh, this is like church, I could do mushrooms every month and I could do ayahuasca every month and all of these things because that's a lot of the church model. I'm actually not a huge fan of the church model in the medicine space because they do play on that, or I might even say prey
Really?
upon people on that to go back every single month. And at the end of the day,
Huh.
I believe that's just too much for your central nervous system, especially since a lot of them aren't offering up the proper preparation integration that you and I are talking about. So just be aware is all I'm just saying. Be curious, be open, but be self-reflecting and radically responsible of how much medicine is too much for me. And even if they're offering it up every month, do I go back?
It's so funny you say that. The MDMA therapy research was monthly, 3 months.
Okay.
My doctors my doctors, it was, September, December, and May. And people are like, "Wait a minute, you took a whole year?" The research says I actually had somebody, like, she had scheduled her 3 journeys, and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." Research model is one thing because you have a set amount of time, things of that sort, but the reality is that my doctors let me determine when I was ready for the next one, and the more I was diving in, the longer the integration was until I was ready for a next one. So I always encourage people, slow down, and if you start working with somebody and they've already scheduled your 3 journeys, in my opinion, that's a bit of a red flag. Like, no, I'm the one setting the pace.
I love that. I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up because that reminds me of my fitness and my yogi. I'm a yogi now, and both fitness, yoga, and then the 12-week year is a certification that I got into the business realm that basically said less is more. You can get more done in 12 weeks than the average person gets done in 12 months because of the time compression, and you're actually hyper focused
Focus.
inside of this 12-week container, as opposed to, that's why New Year's resolutions don't work. Annualized thinking doesn't work. Our ancestors, they didn't think like that. It was like every
Mhm.
season, and then you like shift from spring to summer and so on and so forth. So
Yep.
a lot of times that 90 to 120 day is part of our astrology. It's part of our humanity on planet Earth. So at most, that's why I was saying maybe 3 or 4 times a year, because you have one journey per quarter. Although I love what you did, even again, it's more about you listening to your cycles and what you need,
Right.
as opposed to, yeah. And I even tell people that after their first experience with me, I'll say, let's tune in. Let's integrate for a month or two before even thinking about the possibility of maybe coming back for another one.
I think I put all of those maybe possible could be's in there too, because it's really, yeah, it's up to the user, or it's up to the client. All right. So tell me about, so why did you name it 12-week year framework? Because I got to be honest, I looked at that 3 times before I said it out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you haven't read the book, it's a book, a New York Times bestselling book by my mentor, Brian Moran and Michael Lennington.
Uh-huh.
So it's based on the science of periodization. I was a personal trainer. I was P90X certified back in the day. And so if you don't know what that is, it was one of those infomercial fitness programs, Tony Horton. Yep.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And so that was definitely I was very masculine, very like, set a goal, do it, blah blah blah. But what I loved is it's a framework. So the certification and the book, again, based on that science, Olympic gold medalist is the science they were looking at, how a gold medalist, everything they had in common is they were very structured and focused, but they were also in the flow of their zone of genius, which is the feminine flow. And so
Mm.
they had rest days. They had time blocks where they swam or they biked or whatever. I was an Ironman triathlete. So all of this was like just downloaded in from many lifetimes of being a warrior. And my ancestors showed me that too. And being able to honor having more spaciousness and flow in your days, because especially in America, right? Oh, can I
Ugh.
overbook myself? Can I overcommit? Can I overspend? Can I overextend? Right? Which
Yes.
is the wounded patriarchal masculine stuff that we're working on. Even overdoing medicine. I did that at first because that was what I was trying to heal. Right. And
Mm.
so once I started using the 12-week year inside of the medicine space, it gave my clients, again, that preparation time, the journey work or the retreat in the kind of in the middle,
Mhm.
and then 30 to 40 days of integration. And we intentionally time block flow and embodiment practices and breath work and yoga and grounding and rest and meditation around their work life, but they take on less. For me, this is what I encourage my clients, and I can't make them do it, but encourage them to set, a personal goal, a professional goal, or maybe like a health and a wealth or a relationship goal inside of that container. I don't
Uh-huh.
always get my clients to do 12 weeks. Sometimes it's 8 to 10, but it's still the same idea where they're going to
Cool.
declutter their life. They're going to double down and go all in on this experience and this work with masculine and feminine flow and the less is more approach so that their central nervous system has more time to recover. And they're building daily practices built to last that beyond me. I work myself medicine and me work ourselves out of a job because now they've taken that time to build a lifestyle or make some habit changes inside of the container and that framework. So it goes back to my health and fitness career, my business and sales background, and then putting that into the medicine space was just natural for me because of all of the things.
Yeah. I do think if you have someone that isn't, if the orientation isn't to eventually not be working with you because they have accomplished a goal, it's also a little
Yeah.
bit of a red flag. All right. We could keep chatting. I've got lots and lots of questions, but what's way more important is what question have I not asked you that you wanted to make sure our audience knows or heard or, what should I have asked that I haven't asked?
I feel like for all intents and purposes, because then I can share like a multitude of things all in one, is what was the number one thing that the medicine and my ancestors taught me through this journey?
Hmm. You know what? Hey, what was the number one thing that your ancestors and the medicine taught you? I wish I had come up with that question. All right, I love it. Go ahead.
Well, you can use it for other people if you like. But anyway, so what happened was, because remember, I was sort of still chasing the escape of the medicine experience initially, right? And I wasn't integrating, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
they got me into, because I was really struggling with integration and I was not really wanting to have a daily practice. I was
Yes.
resistant. And so they forced my hand, specifically after that ayahuasca ceremony where I said that they came and they told me that I was a cycle breaker and they told me what I was here to break, not everything, but a good chunk of it. And I was like, okay, game on. Can we start breaking this shit now? Because I'm so fucking tired of carrying this for you. And they laughed. And then I proceeded to puke a long time at the puke bucket. It was like 15 minutes.
Oh.
And then I went home. And like literally the integrative tool they forced me, it's a longer story than I can go into right now, but I like literally woke up every morning and I just threw myself down and I created my own altar. I created my own sacred space. I started communing with them and saying, okay, what is my assignment today? What is my dharma? And what was a 5-minute kind of clunky daily meditation is now expanded into 1 to 2 hours of daily sacred ritual and daily sacred practice. And that was what really came through loud and clear after that first year of, again, overdoing the medicine and not always being safe and not always prepping and integrating properly. But it was my ancestors. They were like, here you go. You are the medicine. You got to go inside daily and work with ancestors, guides, spirit, whether you work with Christ or Mary Magdalene or whoever is your
Showing
archetype.
up.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, it was definitely my ancestors because to be able to, I call myself an alchemist, to alchemize the fear into love, the pain into purpose, the grief into gratitude. I had to work on that daily. And once I found my own medicine, I don't need to commune with medicine much, hardly at all. And so that was like, like a 2-year process.
Yeah.
But then it made me a better medicine woman. It made me a better mom. It made me, much more flying my witchy freak flag and living every day instead of just waiting till the next medicine event also. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Magdalena, where are people finding you?
Yes. So YouTube, because I have a podcast, I'm going to have you on. So I just want to put a plug in for you. And My podcast is called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, and it's on YouTube, Misty Magdalena Grace. And then, of course, MagdalenaGrace.com has a free consultation. If you're a woman who's struggling with addiction or divorce, there's a break free from toxic relationships and addictions, free only one time consultation. And then
Nice.
there's an alchemy. If you're a man who's really waking up or a woman and maybe you don't have addictions, then there's an alchemy one-time consultation to see, explore, discover what it is that you're here to alchemize. And of course, maybe come and see a retreat or come and do some work with me and play. I also have an online witchy women's circle that meets every month for new moon, full moon,
Okay.
and we do all sorts of beautiful magic. So MagdalenaGrace.com is like my number one catch-all hub for social media, podcasting, and all of the things I just mentioned.
Okay, we will make sure that we have that in the show notes. Lady, thank you for being here. Great. You know what? I feel like we just kind of continued our conversation from the other time. So now when I'm on we'll just continue this conversation. It's just the way we flow.
Yay. I love it. I love it.
Have a lovely day. I know you're traveling. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So there you go, folks. Conversations like this matter, especially as more and more people find their way into psychedelic work without always knowing what to look for. Make sure you keep your common sense about you. And in the show notes, you'll find further ways to get in touch with Magdalena. I think she is fabulous and a whirlwind of information. And so if you like this content, please feel free, go ahead to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in more psychedelic culture, head on over to psychedelicscene.com, where we have a whole bunch of interesting articles about music and art and books. And if you like that content, consider buying Jason, our founder, a little cup of coffee, because it is wintertime, it is cold, and he is the one who keeps the lights on. And until next time, everybody, take care.